Welcome back to my channel at Movie Optimist, everybody, where I find the silver linings in even the worst of films. This past Friday, the Russo Brothers' newest film, The Electric State, dropped on Netflix, and I had a chance to watch it. Now, last week, I talked briefly about the early first responses to this film on Rotten Tomatoes and how they were abysmally low, and I'm talking like 17%, and how you shouldn't really let Rotten Tomatoes sway your opinion on whether or not you're going to watch a movie or not, because again, at the end of the day, Rotten Tomatoes isn't giving an overall score for the film. They're not saying this movie is a 17 out of 100. It's just saying that out of every 100 people that watch it, 17 of them liked it, and who knows, you might be one of those people. So I finally got a chance to watch it, and here are my thoughts. Essentially, in this film, Millie Bobby Brown plays this little girl that lives in a world after the events of this big war between robots and mankind. Essentially, robots became sentient and they wanted to live free, but humans deemed them as just machines that can't feel anything, so they exiled them to this gated off area of the world where they could live their life there away from human beings. Now, where this movie really picks up, we're following Millie Bobby Brown as she lives at a foster home. She lost her parents and her brother in a horrible car accident, and you learn that she doesn't really have the best life. Her foster father is played by this guy who is an absolute asshole and just a piece of shit and a drunk and doesn't care about her. She kind of has a really rough life. She's really depressed that she no longer has a mom and a dad that care about her, and she deeply misses her brother, who she had a really strong bond with. They were best friends. Well, one day, this rogue robot stumbles into her house trying to find her, and you learn that that robot is being controlled from her brother, who, plot twist, is still alive somewhere. He doesn't know where he is, but he needs her help to figure out where he is and to free him. Along her travels and trying to figure out where her brother is, she learns that there's potential that her brother is inside of the quarantine zone where all of the robots are forced to stay. Now, in trying to get in there, she winds up running into Chris Pratt's character, who lives underground near the area of where all the robots are. That way he has easy access to get inside and raid things. He's kind of like a scoundrel or a merchant, and he sells things to both humans and robots. And he often ventures into this very dangerous area to get stuff for his shops to sell to people. When she runs into him, she brings law enforcement with her unwillingly because she didn't know that she was being hunted by Giancarlo Esposito's character, who is manning his own droid robot in his pursuit of them. He's kind of like a cop, but instead of being there in person, he operates a machine. And in doing this and exposing where Chris Pratt lives, he has nothing left, so he agrees to help Millie Bobby Brown find her brother. And then it becomes a team up between the two of them. The reluctant father story arc with Millie Bobby Brown, I'm here for it. I love that in The Last of Us, The Mandalorian, and Grogu. Anytime like an older guy has to help like a kid, it's just a heartwarming story arc that I really enjoy. Anyway, so they go into this quarantine zone, and in there they discover that not all robots are actually bad. There's actually a lot of good ones, and really at the end of the day, all they want is to live their lives peacefully and not at war anymore. They don't want to be hated upon by all humans. They just want to be looked at as an equal. And they wind up forming a friendship with these robots, which in turn, they help them try and find her brother. Now, Stanley Tucci is in this film. He is like the main bad guy. He runs the company that controls all of the robots that humans can control. Not the sentient robots, but the droids that people control. And it's his mission to stop Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt from figuring out what happened to her brother, because turns out he actually played a much bigger role in the war of robots and what's going on. The brother is really the heart of this film, and I don't want to give anything else away in case you do in fact want to see it, but that's really the overall story. It's Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt entering this quarantine zone and trying to figure out what happened to her brother with the help of their new robot friends. And I'll say this, in reflecting on the 17% Rotten Tomatoes score, I really don't think it's justified, man. I mean, I know I'm called the movie optimist and I find the silver linings in everything, but it's really not a bad movie per se, but it's not like a great movie either. This movie feels like it's recycling a ton of other movies that did it better that came before it. Like, one of the gimmicks in this film is the robot that is following Millie Bobby Brown that is apparently controlled by her brother doesn't really have a voice modulator per se, so he uses a lot of like music from the radio to talk to her. And where have we seen that before? Bumblebee and Transformers.
Hey, I'm not taking you with me.
Where have we seen the war of the machines amongst people? We've seen it in iRobot.
Robots don't feel fear. They don't feel anything. They don't get hungry. They don't sleep.
I do. I have even had dreams.
And even down to District 9, where all of these misunderstood beings are placed in these like quarantined off concentration camp areas, like it has a very District 9 feel to it towards the second half of this film.
Why don't you just leave? How do your weapons work?
Then you also have Chris Pratt doing the same thing that Chris Pratt does in every movie that Chris Pratt is in, where he's just being this man-child, where he acts like a kid, but he's a man, and he's really fun and uppity and adventurous. It's the same role that he plays as Star-Lord. It's the same role that he played in the Jurassic World movies. It's the same thing that he's playing here. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. He's just playing the same thing. Chris Pratt has kind of become like another version of The Rock, where The Rock always just plays The Rock in every movie, whereas in Chris Pratt just plays Chris Pratt in every movie. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just not breaking any new ground. So yeah, this movie just feels like a lot of things we've seen before, like an iRobot, like a District 9, like a Transformers. And it's packaging it into this PG version that's made for kids. They're taking this book that this is based off of, and they're making it a 4-quadrant film that everybody can enjoy. But in doing that, it does some disservice to the source material, because I haven't read the book, but from what I've heard and gathered and read from other people that did read it, it is a very deep, moving, dark story that's actually quite depressing. It's not this uplifting child fantasy action adventure. It's a really deep, thought-provoking book that raises some serious political questions, and sometimes they don't always have the happiest of answers. And that's one of the reasons why so many people love the book. Listen, science fiction is at its best when it's saying something that you otherwise can't say in a normal movie. Star Trek did this very well, where they took a lot of political problems and they touched upon that under the guise of a science fiction action adventure show, where they're hiding its true nature with special effects and space. And, you know, Star Wars does this with lightsabers and aliens. And the best science fiction is where it's trying to have some kind of point that it's trying to tell. It's trying to teach a lesson. It's trying to hold a mirror up to society and say, this is how ridiculous you're being. But they hide it behind laser swords so that kids could show up and they get the message without actually realizing they're getting that message, and kids can understand it. And that's what this book did for so many people. It was a science fiction book kind of about slavery and these certain groups of people in the machines just wanting to be equal, but being exiled into these quarantined off zones like concentration camps, and the meaning of being human. But they hide that under the guise of robots and these big action set pieces, whereas in this movie takes the core of that, but again, makes it really kid-friendly and strips it down from all of the severity in the book. It strips out a lot of the sadness and depression and the really deep, thought-provoking questions that the book asked. And instead, the Russo brothers just wanted to take the core concept of these robots being pushed out and this little boy that Millie Bobby Brown is looking for being the heart of it and what that mystery is, and it turns it into another blockbuster family action adventure. This movie feels like a movie made for kids with some stuff sprinkled in there for adults to enjoy if they watch it. I felt like I was watching a cartoon in watching it. And again, that's not a bad thing. I don't think this is a bad movie. It's just not the movie that the book set out to be. So I understand why the people that read the book are disappointed in it. And it's not doing anything new either for the family audience that enjoys just a sci-fi action family blockbuster adventure. That's really the target audience for this, and you're just giving them something they've already seen before. You're giving them the same Chris Pratt character. You're giving them a very similar story structure in terms of like these robots just wanting to be accepted in society. You're giving us fun, poppy explosions, action, and adventure. Millie Bobby Brown isn't breaking any ground here. She's fine in it, but she's not doing anything we haven't already seen her done in anything else. So they're just giving you more of something that you've already gotten. So listen, at the end of the day, do I think you should watch it? Yeah, because it's not a bad movie. It's fun. And if you like that genre, you like the stuff that Chris Pratt does, if you like Millie Bobby Brown, if you like the Russo brothers over-the-top action, then I think you're going to at least enjoy it. You're not going to love it. You're not going to walk away feeling like they just gave you the next great piece of science fiction cinema, but you'll at least enjoy your time watching it. It's a good time waster in between waiting for more important things to come out. You certainly won't watch it and walk away going, this was terrible, I wasted my time. No, it's fine, it's serviceable, it's a fine movie. And honestly, I think one of the reasons why it's getting so much criticism is because this had a $300 million production budget. $300 million. I did not see $300 million on the screen. They made Kong and Godzilla New Empire for $150 million. They made this for $150 million. And now we're getting the Electric State that costs $300 million and looks like this. And I'm not saying the Electric State looks bad, but it doesn't look as good as Kong vs. Godzilla. So where did that money go? I have to imagine a lot of it went to paying the actors in this film, because you got Ke Huy Quan, you got Giancarlo Esposito, you got Stanley Tucci, you got Chris Pratt, you got Millie Bobby Brown, and then you got the voices of all the people that are playing the robots. Like, I would imagine it went predominantly to the acting category, where they just paid them all a handsome amount of money to be in this, because I don't see where else it went. And I think that the movie is getting kind of picked on because of that giant budget, and people going, well, this movie does not look like $300 million. And a lot of people are giving a crap about that, how Netflix is kind of just throwing an absurd amount of money at creators to make stuff where you really don't need to. This movie could have easily been made for $115 million, and it would have been the same exact movie with the same exact graphics, with the same exact message. But they didn't do that. They splurged. And it's kind of like Netflix's way of saying, we have a lot of fuck you money, we have so many subscribers, and we're making so much money. This movie's only $300 million? Yeah, greenlight it, whatever. We'll make that back tomorrow with all of our subscribers. Like, that's what it is. So it kind of feels like a slap in the face. But yeah, again, look, at the end of the day, I showed up for this knowing kind of exactly what I was getting into, and I walked away really enjoying it. And I do think that the very core of this movie, although this is definitely, like I said, recycled things that you've seen before, I thought the heart in this film, especially in the end with the big plot twist reveals, I thought was really well done and commendable, and it actually made me shed a tear. I thought that aspect of it was handled really well. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Did you get a chance to check out The Electric State? Have I given you a reason to watch it or not watch it? I would love to talk about it in the comments down below.